Hey everybody, welcome to Leon's, excuse me, Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. We're going to do a repair today on a saw that, I've got some of them on the channel. It's not a home light. A friend of mine had this little saw that he wanted cleaned up. I've gone through and done a kind of an inspection, and I think I've got all the stuff together that we're going to need to make it run right and put it back together correctly, or at least most of it. There may be a few things that I forgot, but we ought to at least be able to get it to bark off a little bit later. We got some work to do though, so let's get at it. Okay, McCulloch yellow, that's what we got. This is a Mini Mac 25. The air filter was shot. This cover's still good. This drive case cover is just busted to beat hell. Buddy can go ahead and replace that if he'd like to. It won't affect what we're doing here. The primary issue is she's got no spark. Now he said he could see spark if he turned off the lights and rolled it over like that. I can't even see that. There's not enough spark for it to bark on a prime. So let's go ahead and get this thing ready to take apart. Now a lot of people really griped about these, and still do, in terms of what you have to do to get them apart. And to service anything, you basically have to take the engine out of the housing. Very similar to a Super 2. Is that the most convenient? No. Is it the end of the world? No. I think the last time I saw one of those threads, it might have been on Facebook, might have been on the forum, I don't remember. Somebody piped up and said, yeah, it isn't the most convenient, but after you've done a couple, you can get them out in about 15 minutes. I'll bet we can do it quicker than that, because I've done more than a couple. And if you hear the wind in the background, that is the next storm attempting to blow in. I don't know what the deal is this year, but it seems like every freaking storm we've had here in the Pacific Northwest has been preceded by, for our area, high winds coming out of the east. Yesterday morning, as I got up, just a little after 4:30, it was 63 degrees outside, okay? And I knew there was a storm front approaching, but that damn east wind picked up and knocked some limbs out of the neighbor's tree here and flung sap all over my windshield and my pickup. I'm real happy about that. But then when the rain hit about an hour later, it went all the way down to 48 degrees. Our high of the day came at 4:45 a.m., give or take. Alright, so you want to get the starter out of the way. You can just set it up there like I did this, but just get it up and get it disengaged from the pawls so that the engine will have a chance to slide out of the case. The other thing you've got to do is take the choke knob off. That's really simple. And I'm wondering what my kids have put in the washing machine that is that far out of balance. The joy. Now, if these jets are set too high, they can need to be run down on the carburetor. That one wasn't open that far. I think these will clear. You just got to use your own judgment. Alright, we're going to start by taking the fuel tank cover off. And my guess is this is going to be a muddy mess, not muddy, but greasy mess under here. And the reason I say that is because the cover, or the hole here where you should be able to adjust your manual oiler, is sealed shut with crap. So, but again, I could be completely off base here. But I'm not. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. I will say that. But we definitely have got some cleanup that needs to be done on this bad boy. Alright. So the next thing to do is get that tank out of the way. Now, the fuel hose and its fitting, that manual oiler lever, should be snapped into the housing down here. As long as it is, this is super simple to get the tank off. You just get under this tab with your flat blade screwdriver and give a little twist, and it pops right off. Obviously you want to have your tank empty at that point. Oh, this thing's a mess. Damn. And if for some reason that wasn't installed correctly and in place, if you can't rotate the tank a little bit and get that to snap back down in there, well, you're going to play hell. You're probably going to end up having to pull hard enough that you break the hose, but you can also break that fitting. So, alright, we're going to go ahead and disconnect the throttle linkage while we're in here. You can see it right there. Now what I like to do is actually, by pure dumb accident, the magnets are right up here. Get in here and disconnect this. It just pops out straight up. And then have your flywheel magnets in the spot. And you can take the rod over and just kind of set it against the back of the flywheel. That way it's not jammed up anywhere. Same thing on reinstall. Alright, spark plug is already out of this. So we need to get the 3 engine mounting screws loose. Now, I am stubborn. I do not like taking the handle off. Handles when I don't have to. So if you can get that screw loose without rounding it, there you go. You got one back here. Thick wall socket almost didn't want to fit in there. And then you got one at the bottom. Okay. Now, this thing is ready to come out. Basically, I'm going to pop this up now. See, that just goes up. That's very simple. And then you want to get your spark plug wire at least loose from back here, or attempt to. You'll probably have to come back to it, but I'm just kind of pushing it up away from the handle and the housing back here. So now with all that, she should want to come out, but there is so much crap in here gluing it in place. Alright, it's starting to move. As I predicted, this spark plug wire is still kind of cinched up in here. There it goes. She ought to come out now. What am I? Alright. I am going to run that jet down. There we go. Oh, what a mess. God. What a mess. What a mess, what a mess, what a mess. Okay. Before I break to clean this up, you can see, well, maybe you can't through all the crap. The carburetor is here. The casting on it goes all the way down under the mounting for the coils, or the coil. Condenser is right there, points are underneath. I don't know what the problem is going to end up being on this ignition. But we stand no chance in the world of working on this if we can't get it cleaned up. So, I'm going to take some time to do just that. I'm going to take this throttle rod off so it doesn't accidentally get lost. And we'll come back when we can actually see what we're working with. Okay. You can see a little bit better now what we're working with here. It actually took more time to clean it up than it did to get this far into disassembly. Alright, these pawls are not meant to be removed, so we're going to do this flywheel removal a way that'll make some people cry foul. I've done it for a lot of years and I haven't heard anything yet. This one's going to be persistent. There she goes. Very good. Alright. Let's take a peek under the points cover. Not as much water as if I had hosed off one of my home lights. I will give McCulloch credit. They did a pretty good job of sealing these breaker boxes up. Just running them in normal damp weather, rain, something like that, you wouldn't have had a problem. But when you take a garden hose to it, you have a problem. But that's okay. Got to get it cleaned out. Now, those points don't look bad. I'm still guessing that this is a bad condenser. But let me blow this points box out with some air. I've read guys who do these saws more than me that they actually don't see a lot of condensers go bad. Now on the home lights, I wouldn't necessarily say that's true. I will almost always go for a condenser before a coil unless I see damage on a coil. But hey, each saw is going to be different. Come on, you. I don't want to lose that. We're just going to pull this condenser off. And we're going to test it and see what our capacitance is. But not with that screwdriver, Winarm. You get out of the way. Damn those things. Oh, man. I don't know how long this thing's been sitting, but it's been a hot second. Alright. Pretty easy to get to. A little gobbledygook hidden back up in here. Let's take a reading on this condenser. Again, if you follow the channel for a while, I bought a fluke meter that will measure capacitance. And that is the best way, assuming your manufacturer has produced or put out some specs, that is the best way to test a condenser without having to do some other funny stuff. Now, that is within range. So I could be wrong here. I don't think there's a damn thing wrong with that condenser. .18 to .22 is the range that I was able to find for this particular model. So we're not going to throw that away yet, because these are getting harder and harder to find. Okay, all of our leads back together, get the points back connected, and I think we'll do a light check of the points condition here. Now, how the hell? Was that stacked? Something like that. No, it wasn't. Crimp on this wire. Huh. And we'll give it a twist that way. crimp on the wire here is preventing it from sitting where it needs to. Alright, finally got that. Twist that up. Above all, you don't want anything that could possibly get caught in the flywheel. Okay. That should be adequate. I don't see any buildup around those points, but let's see if I can find what I'm looking for up here. Oh, what am I just doing? Oh, so good today. Every little piece of 400 grit is missing. All right. Loving this. This is great. This isn't what I want, but it'll work. All I'm doing is letting the force of the points themselves close against the contact and pull the paper out. I'm going to do it about that much, and that is it. Because I don't believe that's the problem. And some little electronics cleaner there. That'll evaporate quickly and leave behind no residue. Okay. Check our points gap. Opening and closing. Yes, technically you should put a feeler gauge on it, but you do get a feel for these things. Alright. We are going to loosely bolt the flywheel on. And by that I mean I'm not going to reef on it with the impact gun. Let's see if we've made any progress. I don't expect we have. Okay. Let's get our tester out and see if it's singing a different tune. I'm going to hold this away. You guys can see it and I don't shock myself. Nada. Alright, so despite my initial thoughts about this thing, it must have a bad coil. Which would make those folks who said, hey, I don't see the condenser fail very often, would make them seem to be right in this particular case. Alright, let's hope that one works. Alright. So your coil is held in place by just two screws right here. And there should be, unless I'm wrong, a couple insulators in there. And there is a washer there. I would prefer stayed on this. I don't know that I've seen that double washered before. But McCulloch made constant revisions to these things. Little tweaks here and there. Yeah. Oh, Insulation on that is pretty rough. That's the points lead right there. Okay. A little more gobbledygook that I couldn't get to. Alright. I'd like to think that I tested this points coil before I threw it in that box. But truth be told, I can't remember. And I didn't mark it. So this will be one big happy surprise. These coils are not easy to find new. They still pop up used fairly often. As I've said before, McCulloch parts aren't exactly growing on trees. So what you're relying on is people to get sick of them and break them down for parts. Alright, sticking with my theme of shade tree mechanicking that we got going on here, we're going to gap this thing with the business card because it actually works really well. There we go. Okay. I don't want to jinx myself, but that should give us a little different something to look at here. And it did not. And I'm not terribly happy about that. Not terribly happy about that at all. Well, back to the drawing board. Yeah, I am not at all happy about this. All right. Unimpressed. Completely unimpressed is what I am right now. See if we can get these points. I'm not sure what's wrong. Okay, it's not very often that I see this happen, but there was a pretty heavy glaze on those points, and I don't know what causes that. Whether it's sitting open or closed, I honestly don't know. But I keep on hand an old tungsten points file for cases like that. You've got to take the points out, put them in your vise, and just lightly actually file them. Take a look at it now. Well, and that's with my coil that I had. You can be darn certain we're going to bolt this one back on, even though it has... Boy, that wire is oof. That is cooked. Maybe we won't. I don't think I have a shrink tubing that'll go on there. Oh, God, that is cooked. We're not going to mess with perfection. Perfection meaning it works. So, because this has been sitting forever, we need to check the carburetor. Okay. Let's get the coil back out of the way. And we're going to take the flywheel back off too. Just to have good access, because if this carb has never been off, the gasket is going to be on there, hard baked, and it's going to be brittle as heck. And I truthfully don't know if I have one on hand. On top of that, I still have the little dust shield I need to put back into the points box here. Okay. We'll just unplug this so we can avoid putting extra pressure on this wire. That one's cloth braided. This one... God, I don't know why on the original coil, why that's so brittle. Here are those insulators I was telling you about. They're just a little nylon insert, as best I can tell. Before I forget, I'm going to slip this little shield back in down here. And it is designed to sit against the housing with that one flat edge. Okay. Alright, let's get this last screw loose. And it wasn't very tight, which is, I'm not sure, an encouraging thing. And I like to just, oh yeah, look at that, she's coming loose. Oh, we got so lucky. But this carb wasn't on tight. Something was loose. Look at all the moisture that's up in there. Okay. Those can just come out. I will now proceed to be ever so careful with this gasket. The rest of the carb needs cleaned up. I'm not going to screw around. Yes, I am. Okay. This cloth braided hose is original as far as I can tell, but your adapter fitting comes off too easily. And look at that right there. That little, what appears to be a hole, and it's nice to maintain this OEM stuff when you can, but this one is just asking for trouble. Guess it might be rotten up in here. Yeah, that was rotten. It's actually seized to the fuel inlet. Alright. Razor blade it is. Hopefully without a trip to the ER. Gosh. Oh yeah. Yuck. And triple yuck. Okay. Give this thing a little wet down. Get some more of that crap off before we take it apart. This is one of those saws where it makes 0 sense to try and save time, quote unquote, when it comes to anything on the engine. Because if you've got to come back in here because you skipped a step, well, guess what? You're redoing everything that you've witnessed already. Minus the cleanup. But you're already in here, you might as well take a peek at the carb. And when a fuel hose is as rotten as that one was, you have to assume that what's underneath it ain't going to be in great shape. Come on. Yeah, see that? Should a diaphragm sound like that? I don't think so. Oh, yeah. Wow. So we know we're doing a carb kit. This is not wanting to come off. And I don't want to break this block. Yeah, it's glued down. This would have never run. Ha! What a mess. Okay. Alright, I need to do some cleanup and find a carburetor kit, and we will come back. Okay, got everything cleaned up a little bit. The downside to this style of carburetor is you can't assemble it and pressure test it. It's got to be pressure tested after assembly. So not the greatest thing ever. But it is what it is. We'll start off assuming that I don't need to pull any Welch plugs. It's very uncommon. Not unheard of, but uncommon in my experience. I hope this isn't one of those kits that I swore off. But by golly, I'm starting to wonder. It's got to be right. somehow it's not. What the hell? What's going on with you? No. No. It's definitely not yet. Nor is that. Nor is that. What in the world? This gasket. This must be one of the kits that I swore off. Okay. I think we've got the carburetor taken care of. Finally found a kit that'll fit. I used to have all kinds of the D1, K1 MDC kits, and I guess I've used them up over time and just hadn't realized it. So we will start, we'll get carburetor screw half torqued. And we'll get the coil. Actually, we'll get that flywheel in place. We're lucky and that gasket did not tear on the back of the carb. If we end up getting this thing essentially repaired with the coil, or the points filing is the major issue, and then a carb rebuild is the next major issue. No, those aren't too many major issues. Okay, let's go ahead and set the business card in place right now. Maybe. You want to be a cantankerous shit, huh? Man. Nothing on this saw has been what I would call fun. Okay, well, if we didn't lose anything, there'll be plenty of spark here. That counts as plenty of spark. heck of a lot more than what we started out with. Alright. So our original fuel hose is nothing but trash. Cut a new one. I'll leave a whole lot extra. That should be enough. Easy to get this pinched up in here as everything slides back into the case. And that you do not want to do. Alright. Not a super cold day, but I'm going to limber this up a little bit. Damn it. Alright, that's as good as it's going to get. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it's got to go under the spark plug wire. And this is where, when you're doing a new hose that's not formed, make sure that when you slide it in the case, you can get this to clip down. Alright, you can see the sealant is still in place on this crankcase. Whether that's original or not, I don't know. But I don't see anywhere that looks blown out. So I'm going to assume there isn't anywhere that it is blown out. This throttle rod cleaned off. It's very important you remember to put that in before you start trying to put this back in the case. Otherwise, you will quickly find out just how not fun it is, and in some cases, just plain impossible. Without bending the rod. Hell, just getting it to go in right here isn't any fun. Alright, let me grab that engine housing. Still a little moisture in here because it's been wet off and on today. Okay. So fishing this back in, you want to try and get the spark plug wire pulled through the back of the handle here, at least a little bit. Makes it a lot simpler. And they don't leave you a lot of extra. There we go. Okay. And then pull up on your throttle. Try not to move your flywheel too much. And oops, check your hose. So this tried to splay out the side. You want to get that hose over here. Goes down in the channel. It's in the engine housing. You'll see it. Oop. Oh, yeah, baby. Mucho better. Okay. And then at a certain point, you're going to have to pull some spark plug wire through. Try not to get it hooked all the way down yet. Ooh, yeah. That alignment looks good. Alright, you can see that that fitting is basically clocked the right way. Yep, there it goes. It'll slip right down into that hole. Right into the slot. That's what you want. No nonsense. If it doesn't slide into that slot in the case here, it's going to be pinched. And you're not going to have any fuel flowing. Before you try to hook up your throttle linkage, I highly recommend you get your case bolts back in. And for your own sanity, I highly recommend a little Loctite glue. Nothing quite like having a saw loose in its case. I've seen them wear some pretty good grooves in these mounting holes, I'll tell you that much. If you can, start with this one up top, because it's the hardest. You kind of got to hold everything in place to get it to start. And it's a miserable pain in the ass. Oh, a lot of sauce. But I have not found that starting a different one is easier. I actually find it makes it worse. Ah, you god dang thing. Ooh, that felt right. That felt, yeah. Okay. See if we can get these other two. Down in here, that one's almost lined up. I think it's lined up enough. There she goes. That spark plug wire's got everything pushed forward, it looks like. There she goes. Check this one and see. I think it might have had water still in the, yeah. That thick wall socket doesn't like to go down there. Alright. Finish this off. These are not the strongest fastener. See what I mean? I cannot use the 12-point section of the wrench. I'm going to use the open. Alright. Now, before we forget, so the magnet's been holding that throttle rod over. So grab it, get it past your throttle trigger, and it'll slip right up there. And as you're holding the back of the trigger so that it can't flex much, slip it back down in that groove. And I don't know that I got that yet. It's got to be close. That just doesn't quite. No, That is not down in there yet. Now I'm going to move the flywheel because it's trying to grab my screwdriver. Okay. You'll know it's in when you get it, because it'll quit rocking and it won't try and pop out as you do the trigger. Alright, let's go ahead and we'll drop the starter back down. And we're not going to do a whole lot more of fixing the little ticky fuse stuff that we need to do, like air filter seals and a few missing screws and all that crap, until we know this thing's going to run. Now, I shouldn't have any doubt at all, but because this thing has fought me at every step of the way, I do have my doubts. And even though I have some McCullochs in my collection, and I certainly have some past experience running them, they still find ways to annoy me time and time and time again. And just like I firmly believe that my Chevy truck is better than a Ford, I believe a Homewa is better than a McCulloch. But I also realize for a whole lot of people those are fighting words, so, you know, it's just one of those things. One of the fallbacks that people who like one saw over the other will fall back to, I guess by definition that's what a fallback is, so maybe that wasn't the most profound statement I could make. But what I see it coming back to is cutting speed. This, dang it, I've got that washer cocked sideways. And I don't give a big, I mean, you care about cutting speed, yes. But dependability, reliability, ease of starting, that's more important to me than, well, I can cut this log half a second quicker than you. That ranks right up there in the I really couldn't give a crap less category. At least for me. And not everybody's the same. Okay, now we're going to do some more fighting. So this oil and fuel tank is the early style. The manual plunger's not retained. I can pull that all the way out. I don't want to, but I could. So what we're going to have to do is get the tank in there, get everything lined up, and then put that front cover on and get the manual oiler lever in there all in a sequence. Okay, so I've got my screws ready. We're going to mount this tank first. So you want your fitting to be basically straight up and down. You want that little oil hose to be basically straight and forward. And then as you put this in, you want to keep an eye on that hose and guide it into the tank so that it doesn't get all jammed up and then leak. And you'll know, like we just got it, and you can look at it from the side, and hopefully you guys can see that it's in there. I can see that it's in there. That shouldn't leak. So now you take your manual oil lever, slip it in here, get it on top of that plunger, hold that in place. Oh, yeah, hold on, don't worry about that yet. Got our felt pad here for the fuel tank. that is bunched up just like it was before. I'll push some of that under here. Alright. Now we'll try this again. Ideally that felt pad is somewhat equally under the engine housing and this cover. How practical that is, well, aren't you fitting worth a crap? What is that hanging up on? Ow. Stupid bar plate. Alright, so I'm going to leave that off for a minute. Try and feed some of this under the cover here. And at a certain point you have to give up and accept it is what it is. Because it'll slam together all of a sudden. And you won't have that throttle or manual oil lever in place, and then you're kind of screwed. Man, this is obnoxious. Okay. I'm going to see if it'll suck up tight here. It did. Alright, there isn't a bunch of that felt pushed up through there. Let's see if we can get this screw to suck the rest of the engine housing in tight. And we did. It's not the best fit on the planet, to say the least. But this is as good as it's going to get. Manual oiler works. Huh. Still a little oil in the line. Certainly not in the tank after being apart like this. Okay. Now, we've had all this apart. There is a chance, I mean, these things can be oil leakers, and there's a chance that I've made this one into one. Or that the hoses have shrunk, or whatever. So I'm going to give it just enough that when it sits tonight, if it's going to leak, I'm going to know. Those hoses aren't super available new anymore either. You get a leaker, almost the best thing to do is clean everything up and trying to do a MotoSeal exterior seal on it. It's not great. You got to redo it every time you take it apart, but well, with any luck, you're not taking it apart all the time. Okay. Another thing these things can do is the seam on the fuel tank can go and turn it into a leaker. And those aren't very easy to find new. You see the theme here? What I do in that case is find the spot that's leaking and JB weld the crap out of it. Sophisticated? No. Typically effective, though. Alright, we're going to drop the spark plug back in and find out if she's going to run. This is a tight fit. I suspect McCulloch had a special tool they sent out. I always start it by hand because it's super easy to get the socket in there sideways or just a little crooked and cross thread it. And that's not a good thing. Alright, so I had to close one of these. Yeah, it was the low. Open that one turn. Okay. Close enough. Let's see what happens here. That is a good sign, my friends. Well, it sounded good until it didn't. Where's all that fuel coming from? Oh, man. Seriously, where is all the fuel coming from here? That is interesting. I don't know. Oh. Oh, yeah. Ha! That sucks. Alright, I will do my best to clean this up. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it. But as I tip it over, see the fuel come pouring out? That's the seam right there. Ay, 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 ay. Now my garage is going to stink like gasoline all night long. So close! Damn it. Okay. Gonna drain the fuel. Don't dare try to effect a repair with the fuel in there. So stupid. I should have known that on top of everything else I'd face this issue. Okay. I don't want this thing living on my bench forever and a day. So, oh man, I can almost, yeah, that's too bad. Alrighty then. Do I not have... Huh. Well, alright. I didn't remember it being time for a new thing of JB Weld. Alright, applicator tool clean here. I do not want to have to come back to this. Damn it. And I swear, one side always flows better than the other. It makes a giant mess out of your cap. Okay. It's going to go to waste, I might as well use it. Let's say this isn't a sophisticated repair, but it is one that I have done repeatedly over the years. If you can find a new tank, is that better? Yeah, sure it is. When you can use a couple bucks worth of JB Weld and achieve the same thing, I don't know. Hard to say. Guess if you're doing a show saw, although who's going to see under the cover, you know what I mean? Okay. Say she ain't pretty, but I suspect it'll work. No, I know it'll work. So, we'll let that cure overnight. But while it was running, yeah, we were getting close. Okay. JB Weld has had time to cure up. You can see I've got it full of fuel. Really full. Too full. It's okay. I'm not getting anything out around it. So, I count that as another win for the good guys. I'm not sure I've had this repair fail. I don't think I have. And it's not glamorous and it isn't pretty, but who's going to be this deep into your saw to see it? So, if you can't find a fuel tank at a reasonable price, a little bit of JB Weld is pretty damn cheap. So, let's see if we can get this thing back together again. We'll put Humpty Dumpty together one more time. Well, here it is. That's probably about as good as we're going to get on that. So we'll get our manual oil lever lined up again and get a screw started. That's not going to fall out. Okay, as good as she gets. Alright, I did all that tuning last time, and I thought I had it close. And yeah, let's just give it a shot. What can it hurt? Other than my neighbor's ears. Interesting. Well, that is now too lean, but it would appear I'm going to blame my wife this time for stealing my small screwdriver. She's been replacing batteries in all the little Christmas decorations, and yeah. Actually, I'm missing. Yeah. Oh yeah, here we go. She was using them. Alright. I'm going to go a quarter turn open on the low. That's a little concerning. We weren't having any of those troubles previously. Maybe I leaned out the high speed a little much. Tuning's close enough. That muffler's still blowing a little bit of oil and crap, leftover residue, but it'll go away. This clutch is no good. I don't know why the hell those shoes are so loose on that Spider, but whatever it's doing, you guys can see I could not stop this drum. I also don't want to lacerate my finger. Try one more time and just confirm. I'm going to wear a glove. It's no good. All that noise was kind of a unfortunate giveaway that it wasn't any good, so I have not dug that out of my parts bin yet. But the few other things that this was missing, I have dug out of the parts bin. And the air filter that was, of course, looched. So this seal just installs here, super simple. I think these are available on eBay again, maybe even aftermarket. All it needs to be is fuel resistant rubber that's cut to the right size. That slips around the carb neck. Sealing surface for that air filter, which of course has rubber of some sort on the back. And then, voila. I can still remember knocking this loose on the one I had as a kid and having to go find all that crap in the woods. That kind of sucked. Okay. This looks pretty good. We need to put, you notice there's one screw missing back here on the handle. Now, you want to be very aware of the fact there needs to be a steel insert in here that takes up the difference. Otherwise, you'll smash that throttle handle and destroy it. So make sure that steel insert or something suitable is in there. Hey now. There's something in there? Or is this... Oh. Yeah, idea. My guess is it's out of alignment. Yeah. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Alright. Hey, that fuel cap leaks. There's something new. It's one of those self-sealing caps, and it may not seal as well as it used to, but that's good luck finding those. Okay. What are we forgetting here? Now, I didn't see it pumping a bunch of oil. I don't really want to take this bar plate off. That's right. There we go. Let's give this another fire and see if she and the auto oiler is working. That's unfortunate. Seems like nothing on this saw quite works the way it should. Now that does suck, because to service that, guess what has to come back off? And you may have already guessed it. Although I think I actually can get away with leaving the oil. Or did it all? Yeah, there's oil in there. Alright. So you gotta be careful not to break the housing here. There's a little room right at the top for a screwdriver to go in. But it doesn't like to play nice. So I always end up doing something that I always go, oh man, I hope that doesn't break. Trying to do the slow release twist method here, and it's not working. I don't want this to be violent and sudden. Oh, you son of a bitch. God, I hate these things. That retainer bail is such a pain in the ass. You just get back out of the way. Alright. So what you've got to do is get that hose, the discharge hose out, while getting the feed hose out. Now there's some sort of yucky poo material down here. The pulse from the engine comes through right there. And in a manual oiler saw, that's just not drilled right at this last spot right here. So if you have one of those later versions, it's real easy to convert it to... See, this is seized up with some sort of fluid that's not good. I can't even compress the piston. So, I'm going to pull this apart and get all of whatever is half dried up in there out. This piston should just come right out the front. Ooh, there we go. That's a lot of oil. But why it wouldn't pump is anybody's guess. I don't want to have to blow a bunch of compressed air and stuff through there. Don't have to. This is a very basic setup. You've got your return spring. That's what it was seized up. That's interesting. There's a... Alright, this pump, you've got your actual pump body that's pressed in there. You got that ridge right there. That's what that indexes into. Except I didn't catch it. There it goes. And you got your spring, and then you got your piston. Now, in theory, this should move in and out easily. And it's not. And I don't know why. That's not normal in my experience. I can't explain that. Short of cleaning this whole thing out completely clean, but this feels like that plunger, or as McCulloch calls it, the actual piston ring, that material is, it's a tight fit in there, but it is trying to pump now. Okay. This saw is the epitome of why I whine about McCulloch sometimes. It's not McCulloch's fault. I mean, maybe it is. They designed the damn saw, but anything that can go wrong on this saw has gone wrong on this saw. So maybe Mr. Murphy was working with Mr. McCulloch. I don't know. So I cleaned all that up really, really well inside of the inside of the oil pump. A little bit of grease that survived the hose out. And yeah, it started rebounding when I put some fresh oil into the actual metal cylinder inside the pump. It almost would rebound on its own. So I think the engine pulse back and forth is now operating it. That's pumping a lot of oil. I'm going to run this back into where I know I used to run mine at. Again, super simple adjustment, and you should probably do about a half a turn at a time. That's about it. So the final thing we're going to do is deal with that clutch. Again, I don't know what's wrong with it for certain. Why the hell there's so much wear between the spider and the shoes. Let's get it off of there. We'll take a peek. And this is a reverse thread. And it almost didn't want to come off. Yeah, look how much... It's the back and forth here. That shouldn't be happening, and I'm not exaggerating that. Let's see if I can do it in a way that you guys can see it. That's just crazy. That's why it's... Okay, there you go. Here's a new one. So McCulloch did some strange things with their clutches. And you can't mix them up. And I'm sure there's people out there that know these as well as I know some of the home lights and can tell you all the tricks and whatevers. Clutch that comes off, look at the shape of that nut. Okay, it's kind of rounded on the end, and you've got this buildup of material. Most of the IPLs, excuse me, call for an 83906. Look at the shape of that nut and the buildup of material. Now look at them side by side. How well do you think that's going to end? Not well at all. So I can either go to eBay and dink the dolphin trying to find something there, or I can install the earlier style clutch. Okay, the 83136, the Minimac 1, Minimac 6 use this. It's actually a 3-shoe clutch. Okay, you can see it's got the right shape of nut back there. Fits the drum. This one's got a little bit of shelf wear, but it's otherwise new old stock. Shelf wear meaning, I think, a rat pissed on it. So, that spring's not destroyed, but this one would work. This clutch would not work, and I don't know what it would take to make it work with this crankshaft. They actually had multiple crankshafts that they used. Working on these things isn't as easy as a home light. So I don't know what I'm going to do, to be perfectly honest. I may spend a little more time on eBay. Long and the short of it is when you get the right one, you spin it back on, tighten it down good. I recommend your first run be with a bar and chain so that you don't accidentally send this thing zinging off into space. I've done that on the channel before, and I don't recommend it. Yeah, like I say, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with this in the way of a clutch. I think I've got all the other nasty little buggy boos worked out. But, let me tell you folks, this saw is a great example of what can happen over the years. It looks like a good clean, well, it is clean saw. But the work and the parts that it needed, I can assure you, by the time you account for the shipping here and back with my bill, this is going to cost almost twice what this saw was brand new out of the box. And that's just reality. The carburetor work, fighting with that oil pump, you know, having to seal up the tank, it adds up. It really adds up. And that's part of why all these videos are now on the web. I want to give you guys as much information as I possibly can Some of that from the edge of the bench just got all over my knee when I was failing to pay attention. Anyway, I want you guys to have the information to try and do this stuff yourself, because my goodness is it expensive. Even at the shop rate I charge, which is pretty, I don't think you'll find any other place that, anywhere, that would work on these reputably. I'll use that word, reputably, and pronounce it right this time. So yeah, that's where we're at. This is an expensive repair, but it's going to be a good looking saw, and I think it's going to cut just fine, and be good for whatever it gets used for. But when you have to get in this deep and replace this many parts and fight with this many little quirky ticky-foo issues, it starts adding up. So this video was more than long enough. Catch you guys on the next one.